Burnout is a form of exhaustion where you constantly feel like you have way too much to do. I have certainly felt burnout a couple different points in my career, and if you're a software engineer, there's a very good chance that you will too. Burnout can lead to low productivity and even depression. It usually starts out with you not feeling excited about work, but it can lead to severe procrastination or a very negative, cynical outlook on your job. I remember when I was working at Meta, there was a period where the only thing I was excited about was going into breakfast every day and eating a waffle at a particular waffle station at a cafe over in Menlo Park. Sounds kind of stupid, but it's entirely true. I just really was not happy with my project, with the work I was doing. And today, if you are remote or hybrid, you may not have the opportunity to go look forward to that free waffle on campus. And so it is a real thing. People are getting burned out, especially in pandemic time. So in this video, I want to talk about 4 of the reasons why I think software engineers often encounter burnout and then how you can mitigate it. The first reason why software engineers are prone to burnout is because you can do software engineering from pretty much anywhere, anytime, right? There's no physical manifestation of the output of an engineer, typically, writing code. And computers are getting smaller and lighter every year. It's not that hard to pull out your laptop if you're on vacation, if you're in bed, if you're on the bus. You can always do a bit more work. And in fact, I've literally seen people on their phone, they'll start reviewing other people's code and start leaving comments. Compared to other fields like mechanical engineering or chemical engineering, where you might have to go into a lab and do some work, or many other jobs where you may clock in, clock out at some physical location, you don't have that with software engineering typically. So if you do have an office, I would recommend you actually create some physical distance and psychological distance between home and work. That helps. But if you are working from home like I am right now, then what I'd recommend is create an arbitrary deadline for you to hit every single day. So for me, at 5:30 p.m., I might go play pickleball with a couple of friends, or I might go have dinner with someone in the evening. And that way, it kind of forces me to stop what I'm doing and go plan out that event or go meet that person. And having that deadline is really beneficial for 2 reasons. Number 1, it gives me something to look forward to, which I think is just a healthy thing in general. And number 2, it will force me to get up, not look at my computer, and go do something else. And that is really critical for avoiding burnout because there's always more to do, right? But you want to make sure that you leave some mental gap, some clarity, so you can do other things in your life. The second issue with software engineering is that there's no limit to how deep you can go in the code. At any reasonable sized tech company, you're going to have hundreds of thousands or millions of lines of code that you could spend hours or even years trying to understand. And you still wouldn't properly understand everything because everything will change so rapidly month over month. The software we create is limited only by the amount of complexity that we can fit in our brains. And so it's pretty clear why you might feel overwhelmed when you have so much happening in these 10,000 lines or 100,000 lines of code. So I have 2 pieces of advice here. Number 1, don't try and master the entire code base. I actually have a video about this. It's actually a much more productive thing to do, to really focus in on one particular area, one niche of the whole code base of the whole team, and become the master of that small area. And if you just trust the API, trust the abstraction, you're going to be much more productive and much happier just kind of at least starting out knowing that one area. And the second piece of advice here is that I really would encourage you to share your vulnerability. If you are feeling overwhelmed, if you are feeling like you don't understand something, then talk about it with a coworker. I remember when I was at Meta and there was a pretty horrible on-call that we were part of. There were so many things happening, so many alerts. And then a coworker literally came to a team meeting and said, I hate our on-call. It's so confusing. I don't understand it, and I'm very frustrated. And just hearing this coworker say that made me feel so much better. And so I feel like there's so much value in camaraderie and kind of sharing your misery. What you shouldn't do is post your vulnerability on a forum like Blind, which is toxic and it'll actually make you feel worse. Instead, I would recommend you find a more supportive online community. For example, Taro, which is the company I'm building, join taro.com. Check it out. We help software engineers optimize their job in a credible, helpful way. The third reason why software engineering is tough is because there's no clear separation around roles. One thought experiment is that if you drop a non-engineer into the office and they just basically observe all the different people, it would look like pretty much everyone is doing the exact same work, right? It's not clear that, okay, one person is handling the on-call load, or one person is handling the new features, one person is doing bug fixing. Like that's not obvious at all, right? And so unless you really communicate and figure out what people are doing, it can feel like you have to do everything. And that is obviously going to be overwhelming, and then you're going to get burned out. The dangerous thing here is that there is often a lot of unsaid work that has to get done by a team. So for example, if another partner team comes to you and says, hey, I need help debugging this, or your documentation's out of date, go fix it, then usually there's not like a clear point person for someone to do that job. And so that work kind of falls through the cracks, and then people who have the bandwidth, people who have the ability to help out, they will just go do it. And that can definitely lead to burnout because you have all these kind of ad hoc things that are getting in the way of you doing the real work. My recommendation here is to create structure around all the work you have to do on the team. Not just the main projects, but also all the long tail of other things that people on the team end up having to do, even if they don't get credit for it. And I think that's actually a huge value add. Naming things is very hard in computer science. If you're an engineer, you probably know that already. And the same thing applies organizationally. If you can be the person to name, to call out that, hey, we are doing at least 10 or 20% of our time is going into fielding support requests from this other team. Just the fact that you acknowledge that and people agree with you, that is a huge value add. And so what I would do is try and call out all the different things that people are doing and then create structure around it. Figure out an on-call system, figure out a methodical way that you can do all this extra work without putting undue burden on any particular person. Finally, reason number 4 why software engineers often get burned out is because communication is very, very challenging. And I mean that in 2 ways. Number 1, the beautiful thing and the challenging thing about software is that it's so easily changeable, so malleable, right? And you can take a product and very quickly adapt it or change it in the next release in a way that you probably couldn't do in other industries. And what that means is it's really hard to stay up to date on the latest definition of the product or the latest definition of what you're trying to achieve with the library or API, right? And you have, directors or managers or other people who are telling you things have changed, but it's also not clear how your work will ladder up to the change they're talking about. And also, there's another level too of I don't really know what the director does. It took me a long time to figure out what is the role of a manager or a director and how do they actually add any value to my organization. And the second way that communication is challenging is that if you're an engineer, you will need to provide updates on your work, your feature, your bug, your API that you're developing. And it can be quite challenging to figure out what level of granularity do I send out updates on this and who actually cares about this. If things are getting delayed, should I let anyone know or should I just try and fix it on my own before anyone finds out, right? These are kind of difficult questions. In general, my rule is over communicate bad news. There should never be bad surprises. Good surprises are, of course, they're okay. I'm always happy to be pleasantly surprised, but a bad surprise really hurts your credibility. And so you should definitely overemphasize on communicating those. If you want to learn how other engineers at various top companies handle their own workload and how they handle communication, I would encourage you to check out Taro. We're building a private software engineer community focused on career growth. So join Taro.com. I'll leave a link for it in the description. Would love to have you check it out. And I think it really can remedy a lot of the issues of burnout that many software engineers face. The reflection I'd encourage you to do is when Monday morning comes around, you wake up, you go to work, how much dread do you feel? There's always some parts of the job that we don't like, but if you're getting to my level of frustration where the only thing you really look forward to is going to make that waffle at the cafe, I think things are really not healthy and you should take steps to remedy it. Either talk to your manager, talk to a mentor, talk to a coworker, come join Taro. There are ways that you can help yourself mitigate this burnout. Let me know in the comments if you have any tips to avoid burnout. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.